Today we have another ball review. We will be going over the Subzero Forge, Motiv's newest bowling ball. For those of you that watched my bowling career on the PBA, the Forge Flare was one of my favorite bowling balls, and this is somewhat of a recreation of it, but trying to make it better in many ways. As you can see, I have three different ones in front of me. One's going to be pin up, one's going to be pin down, and then I'm actually going to have another one drilled pin up as well as the other one, and show you what surface changes will do with this bowling ball when you're bowling on a typical house shot. I have thrown this ball a little bit so far. I've got some games on them, as when you guys watch this video, I'll probably be done with the Lucky Larsons in Sweden. But I've been preparing my bowling bag for that tournament and seeing if this one's gonna make it. And so I put a lot of games on my couple. And what I've learned so far is that it is very Forge Flare-like. It is a very early continuous ball. For many people on typical house shots, you're gonna see this as one of your benchmark bowling balls and something you start with, as it is an early rolling bowling ball. It's not something you're gonna want to start ball changing to later in the day, as you need to open your angles and your bowling ball hooks early as it is. You will not need help with this one hooking. You will need to make sure you're throwing it on fresh house shots when you actually need a little extra hook. For those of you that struggle with getting some of the hook early enough, or hook early, or enough overall, this is gonna be more of a staple in your line. For those nerds out there like me who care about the way the ball is drilled and the numbers of it, the dual angle layout of the pin up one is 45 by 4 3/4 by 35, and the pin down one is 45 by 4.5 by 70. So some of the numbers are pretty similar, mainly because it is a symmetrical bowling ball, but huge difference in the pin up and pin down and how high or low it is for my fingers. So really looking forward to showcasing this for you guys, and you know, giving a different look of what surface does. I think is important. Many of you, when you maintain your bowling balls, it's one thing to clean them and maintain them that way, but it's another thing to keep surface on the strong ones. If they come out of box with surface, they're meant to have surface. So I'm gonna show you the difference in one that's oil shine that I've thrown quite a bit, and one that is out of box, but then added surface to it. The Subzero Forge does have the detonated core, which is 247 RG and 055 diff into 15 pounds. Make sure you check the motivbowling.com website if you want to look at some of the weights in 14, 16, 13, whatever you're throwing. I do throw 15 pounds, so that's what we're going to work with today. But you know, big core, like that is an early rolling ball when it comes to the Motiv line. It's one of our earliest rolling bowling balls. So super excited for me. It's something I use on the fresh a lot, and so we'll see what it's all about. All right, we got the bowling balls drilled, we're back. I have not thrown any shots yet today, so you're going to get the pleasure of watching me hack it all over the place as I warm up. But I'm gonna try to get lined up with a couple Subzero Forges I've had drilled, and then we're going to sprinkle in the new one, as well as a nuclear forge and a coral venom, and I'll get into why the coral venom a little later on. As I warm up, you know, what am I really looking for out of a bowling ball? Like, where is it gonna pick up? How much is the hook overall? How does it go through the pins, of course? I never really care if my ball is striking much as I'm warming up, because one, my ball speed is gonna go up, my rub rate's gonna go up as I loosen up. I'm just gonna throw better shots. So I'm really just looking for how the ball is performing and where is it hooking on the lane. And so this is my pin up one that I've been throwing for maybe a week now. I would say it probably has 20 games on it, so it's a little oil shined. And when I talk about oil shine, like when you get a new ball that has a bunch of surface, especially something that comes as, I wouldn't say this is dull, but it's definitely not shiny. When a ball gets oil shine, you'll see that the surface comes off, and there is somewhat of a gleam to it when there's oil on it. And so that's what oil shine. The more you throw it, the oil actually shines the ball up to a higher surface. Whenever I get a new ball, I always start with layouts, and if you guys have watched the other ball video I've done, or any of the ball videos of Motiv, I always start with layouts I know So I have an expectation of where I want the ball to hook, what I want the motion to be like. And like I said, if I'm comparing this to bowling balls that we've had in line, I'm comparing this to a Forge Flare, which I've thrown a ton. So this pinup layout is the same layout I've had on the Forge Flare that I've had a ton of success with. I'm gonna throw the down one a little bit too. I don't think that this one I'm gonna throw as much, as I'm using a very early bowling ball, and a pin downs for me do roll a little earlier and I'm a little more forward. And as you can see, it definitely did just that. It's, I mean, that was probably 2 or 3 feet earlier and definitely more forward down the lane. That would be more of the one I'll start with on sport patterns, longer patterns, when I keep my angles really straight and I need something that really tumbles down the lane. Really tight house shots when I get to play to the right more. So far, so good. As you guys know, if you've watched the channel before, I always try to bring Perry into it in some way. Shout out to Perry for making the house shot here. Done a great job and making it a lot easier, especially for our lessons. Sometimes I get called the bad cop because when I do lessons, I always put out something super hard. So the lessons come in trying to get better and they don't throw too many strikes because the pattern they throw on is hard. So Perry's done a great job making a house pattern that people can have more success on and leave here with a little bit more confidence. All right, let's sprinkle in a couple of the other bowling balls. So I just drilled this nuclear forge the same exact way as the Subzero is drilled, and I'm going to throw them both out of box. Show you the differences. And the very first thing I'm going to notice there is, wow, is that ball cleaner than the Subzero. And I'm not even throwing the fresh Subzero. I have a feeling this fresh one's going to be ginormous. Yeah, way more angular. For those of you that have been watching the videos and leaving comments, thank you. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video so far because we are sprinkling in some different angles in which you can watch the ball motion. Shout out to Jillian for bringing her entire setup. You know, we are learning as we go. And so we are trying to make these better for your viewing pleasure. All right, so this is the fresh Subzero. I'm gonna move a few boards left than I have because when these things are out of box, they have a lot of surface. I expect this to hook a lot earlier. And yeah, I mean, like, this is definitely something different than we have in our line at this moment. Since the Forge Flare has been gone, I've been using a lot of Pride Dynasties. I've been using Jackal Ghosts more on the fresh. I really expect this ball to fit that part of my bag where I need something early, something for the fresh when I'm blowing on fresh long patterns to pick up and go. Really make sure that I'm controlling the front part of the lane. And as you can see, when I threw the Nuclear Forge up against it, the Nuclear Forge is somewhat of a smoother ball in our line when it comes to our shiny balls. And you can still see that was way more angular than the Subzero Forge. And it's not that the Subzero Forge isn't continuous, but two totally different types of ball motion. So I'm gonna try to stand in the same spot as that fresh Subzero. With this, I expect this to go a little longer and be more angular. So I mean, clearly, and I hope it shows in the angles for you guys, that that ball went much farther down the lane before it made a motion. Did it get there? Absolutely. But I would say right now the Subzero definitely looks better. It's more controllable because I'm really banking on that Forge having a ton of down lane motion, or the Nuclear having a ton of down lane motion to get back and go through the pins, where the Subzero is hooking plenty early enough to control and make the pocket as big as possible. So, what are the signs of a really good bowling ball, right? Everybody asks, like, why would I get this ball over another? Or what makes one better than another? It's about how big does it make your pocket? Does it fit your game in particular? And can you throw it across the lane, right? This ball is definitely gonna be specialized in straighter angles, something that hooks early, very controllable type ball motion. It's gonna be more in the benchmark category and or in the start of the league night, start of tournaments category. I don't see this competing with like a Crimson Jackal in continuation down the lane. That's not what it's made for. It's definitely more made for controlling the lane, controlling the pocket. For those straighter players, gonna be huge for you guys, especially for those of you Motiv specialists that throw only Motiv bowling balls. Shout out to you guys, and I think you guys are gonna love this. It's something we've been missing in the line for sure, and a great replacement so far for the Forge Flare. All right, so that's the newest one that I just threw. And as you can see, I moved a few boards left. So I'm now gonna throw the same layout one that's a little oil shine, got a couple weeks on it. I'm gonna show you guys how when the oil shine happens and as you throw bowling balls with games on it, it's gonna allow me to go farther back right. It's gonna have a similar type ball motion, but a little less overall. And then I'm gonna show you what adding some surface to this ball will do to make it more back to normal. So I'm gonna move 4 boards right. Again, it's not that old. It really only has like 20 games on it, just little oil shine. And as you can see, makes perfect ball motion. Like it does all the right things, but it does do them from a little straighter than the newest one does. And so I'm now gonna take my old one, and hit it with surface. I'm gonna hit it with 1,000 to get it somewhere back to where it came out of box, or make them look very similar. And so now, I would say those are fairly similar in surface. I'm not testing them. There are ways to test your surface. I do think that's important. Like if there's somebody that has access to that, I do not have one of those here at Turbo. I try to just do it with my eyes. But we've now hit the old one, the one with some oil shine on it with surface to match the new one. I'm gonna move into the same spot that I'm throwing the new one at and see if they're close. So I'm moving 4 back left, get back into the middle lane a little more. And as you can see, pretty similar to the new one, right? I mean, I would still say, if I'm being super picky, the new one out of the box was maybe a foot earlier. It definitely looked like a check mark a little sooner, but hitting it with surface definitely brought it back to what we would consider normal. Why is that important is, yes, bowling balls out of the box, we love them, we get new ballitis, we throw them all the time. It is one thing to clean them, it's one thing to maintain the surface. Do I think you should do that every 20 games? No. I do think that some bowling balls get better over time. I'm gonna be putting a lot more games on that before I take it over to Sweden with me, just to get it back to the oil shine state, but more so just showing you guys the difference in a ball that is freshly surfaced versus not. All right, so now let's start comparing them to other bowling balls, right? Subzero Forge, again, one of the strongest earlier ball motions that we have, especially from a benchmark standpoint. I'm gonna compare it first a little more to the nuclear and exactly how many boards I would move and how I would use them differently. So I'm gonna use the up one that I have some games on for this, that I just hit with surface, just because I know this one a little better. I'm going to stand on 25 and I'm going to try to get it around 8 down the lane. And the saying goes, it doesn't matter how they fall. That one didn't go through the pins as well as some of the others. I thought I missed that a little bit at the bottom. But when I throw the nuclear on top of this, I would assume that the best way to use the nuclear would be to go a few boards left because it's gonna have more angle, and maybe throw it a touch slower to give it more time to pick up. I call that a double move when they make a ball change. So I'm gonna do two things. I'm moving left and I'm gonna throw it a touch slower. And it's more so because this one's so much shinier, it's gonna go down the lane more naturally, farther. And so I need to give it more time to pick up, but I do think I gotta move left because of how much more angle it's gonna have. So I stood on 25 in that one. I'm gonna stand on, we're gonna go with 28. I'm gonna try to use the same break point. Right, so you can clearly see the difference there. That moved a few left. It definitely went a little farther down the lane naturally, but it roared off the down lane motion, right? Way more angular than that of a Subzero, and that's why they will balance each other. They will, if you're a huge fan of the Forge line, gotta get the Subzero in your hands. Definitely different type of motion. Now to my Coral Venom. Why is my Coral out here? Why in the world would I compare it to a Subzero Forge? People might think I'm weird for this one, but Coral Venom is one of my benchmark balls. When I go to tournaments and I'm limited on how many I can take, like something like going to Sweden, I am going to make sure that I have 2 benchmark balls because those are the bowling balls you're planning on using the most, and then you build your arsenal around them. So I'm bringing my Coral out to compare them because can I put the Coral and the Subzero both in the bag to go to the same tournament? That is the question. Would you in a 6-ball bag? I'm gonna tell you, my mindset going into it is no, I don't think I should. I think I should pick one or the other because the motions, although they are totally different covers, are similar down the lane. The Coral just goes much farther down the lane naturally. It goes fairly forward as well. And for this one, I'm gonna use my pin down Subzero Forge because my Coral is pinned down. They do have the same exact layouts. So I'm actually gonna throw the Subzero first, my pin down one, get an idea of where I should be lined up with this. I'm gonna go a few back right, then those up ones, because this should have a little less motion overall. Right. And so what I'm looking for in a benchmark ball is control. Control, control, control. Can I hit the pocket a lot? Can I control the ball motion? I didn't really like that shot. That was a little firm off my hand. What I did like about it is that it still got there. It picked up, it tried to go. To get that 10 pin out, I would probably have to throw it a touch slower, but maybe even just get a little better at the bottom. Don't do me like that. Those pesky 9 pins will get you. But see, the difference between a flat 10 and a stuffed 9 is really just me throwing a little better, controlling the speed a little better. So this one hugs the lane is what I call it. When I talked to Brett Spangler, not only a ball rep, but he helps design the bowling balls at Motiv. When I talked to him about this bowling ball, I described it as a snow plow almost. I mean, the thing just chugs it. It hugs the lane, just keeps rolling. And so that is the way I use my Coral. Of the Venom line, I think the Coral is the most forward rolling for me personally, outside of maybe the new EJ ball. If you watch my other ball review on the EJ VIP Venom, I think the Coral is the next rolliest, and that's what I use my benchmark ball currently. So I'm gonna stay in the same spot, but I do think this one will strike, not because it hooks early enough, but because it actually retains a little more energy down the lane. It's gonna go a little farther and be a little more angular than the Subzero. Again, same layout, a little shinier surface. And so, as you can see, definitely a little cleaner down the lane. Similar type motion, it did get forward, but it definitely happened farther down the lane. Part of the reason why I want to take both is because they're similar type motions. I think the Subzero, if I shined it up, could get similar to a Coral, and a Coral really dull could get similar to a Subzero. However, would I like to have both? Absolutely, if I took 8, 9 balls, they would both be in the bag for sure. But to fit around my arsenal at the moment, I'm gonna take the Coral out, I'm gonna put the Subzero in, and then I'm gonna continue to take a Pride Dynasty as my second benchmark ball that's a little more continuous down the lane. All right, we got a lot of shots down the lane throwing the new Subzero Forge with some comparisons to a benchmark ball of mine and the old trusty Nuclear Forge. And you know, what I see is this ball is ginormous. You know, it's definitely one of the earliest rolling bowling balls in our arsenal. Not only is it early rolling though, but plenty continuous for fresh house shots. And as you can see, I was getting pretty deep with it and it kept going. So no concern there. It's different. I mean, that's the best way for me to describe it, in a good way. It's different. We don't have too many bowling balls that roll that early and keep going like that. So shout out to the guys at Motiv, you know, for one, bringing back one of my favorites in the Forge Flare in a different way. Of course, I do think that compared to the Forge Flare, this is more continuous. The Forge Flare is a little more forward. I would always play a little straighter with the Forge Flare. And you know, in some conversations with other Motiv staffers of balls that you've liked in the past, like some balls that are always brought up is the Primal Rage, the Black Revolt, and for me it was definitely the Forge Flare. So personally, super happy about it. We'll see how it performs in some professional events and going forward, and you know, I'm looking forward to good things with it. But hopefully this is information for you guys, helps you not only decide on getting a new ball, but hopefully and how they compare to each other, and what to do with your surfaces as you get a new ball that you like, and as time goes on, what you could do to change it to make it better again. Thanks for watching. As always, follow me on all my other socials, Instagram at @AAnderson300, on Twitter at @AAnderson300. I am on TikTok at @AAnderson300. And of course, please comment below anything that we can do better or anything that you like, dislike. We're trying our best, but so far so good. So thanks guys. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video.